Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving deep into a really foundational chapter from Robert Sapolsky's Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. It's called Glands, Gooseflesh, and Hormones.
A classic really sets the stage for understanding stress.
Absolutely. Our mission today is to kind of unearth how your brain quietly orchestrates your body's most intense reactions. And, what that means for how you experience stress.
Right. The hidden mechanics.
Let me kick us off with a thought experiment Sapolsky uses, quoting D.H. Lawrence, as she melted small and wonderful in his arms. Now just imagine reading that, or maybe thinking about something really stressful or even euphoric. Your heart starts pounding. Maybe you feel a flush or start sweating a little. Certain parts of your body suddenly feel, well, very alive.
Yeah.
You haven't actually moved, but your pancreas is secreting something, your liver is making a new enzyme, blood flow's changing all over, all from a thought.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you stop and think about it.
So what is actually happening there? How can just thinking trigger such a huge physical response?
Well, that's the core of it, isn't it? Sapolsky really drives home this profound, often totally unconscious link between your thoughts and your body's physical state.
Right.
We sort of know the brain runs the body, but the sheer reach of it, how a thought can instantly trigger things miles away, down in your toes or in your adrenal glands. It's still surprising, like you said, an invisible conductor.
Yeah, an invisible conductor is a great way to put it. So our deep dive today is all about mapping those communication lines. How does the brain talk to the body, especially when stress hits?
Understanding this is step one. It helps explain how stress can save you in a crisis.
Like that Savannah sprint.
Exactly. But also how the same response, triggered constantly by worry, might eventually make you sick.
Okay, let's unpack this system. Maybe start with the familiar bit, the voluntary nervous system.
Good place to start. That's the part you're consciously aware of, mostly.
You decide to move a muscle, shake a hand, maybe dance a polka if that's your thing, and boom, it happens.
Simple.
Simple because you're in charge.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side, the autonomic nervous system. That's the more mysterious one.
The automatic pilot?
Pretty much. It handles all that interesting stuff your body does without you deciding. Blushing, gooseflesh. Sapolsky even mentions orgasm. You don't just decide for those to happen.
Right. Though you did mention there's a bit of nuance. It's not totally involuntary.
Well, yeah. Things like biofeedback show you can gain some influence. Or, just consciously trying not to burp loudly in a meeting. There's some wiggle room, but it's mostly running in the background.
Okay, so this autonomic system, how does it handle the stress response specifically?
It basically splits into two teams, working in opposition, like a gas pedal and a brake for your body.
Let's hit the gas first then, the sympathetic nervous system.
Right. This is the one that switches on in emergencies.
Right.
Or even if you just think there's an emergency, it's the alarm system. Vigilance, arousal, activation. Sapolsky's 4 Fs, right? Fight, flight, fright, and sex.
Those are the ones. It gets you ready for intense action.
Like when someone jumps out and scares you. That jolt.
Exactly that feeling. Your heart pounds, maybe you gasp. That's your sympathetic system kicking in.
And it reaches everywhere.
Pretty much. Nerves run from the brain down the spine, out to nearly every organ, blood vessel, sweat gland. Even those tiny muscles attached to your hairs.
Causing gooseflesh. Hair standing on end.
Yep. And chemically, it's fast. Nerve endings release norepinephrine directly onto targets all over the body.
Okay.
And they also trigger the adrenal glands to pump out epinephrine, that's adrenaline, into the bloodstream. Within seconds, things are firing up.
Okay, so that's the go-go-go system. What about the brakes? When the danger's gone, or you just need to rest and digest?
That's the other team. The parasympathetic nervous system, it handles the calm, vegetative stuff, everything but the 4 Fs.
Like growth, digestion?
Energy storage, just general chill-out mode. Think about feeling sleepy after a huge meal.
Yeah. The Thanksgiving dinner effect.
That's your parasympathetic system hard at work, promoting rest and recovery.
So they work against each other. Sympathetic speeds the heart, parasympathetic slows it.
Precisely. Sympathetic sends blood to muscles. Parasympathetic sends it more to digestion. It's a balancing act.
You wouldn't want both going full blast at once.
Disaster, like flooring the gas and the brake simultaneously. Thankfully, the brain usually coordinates it, activating one while inhibiting the other. It's this constant, unconscious adjustment.
Okay, so that's the super fast nerve communication. But you mentioned the brain has another way to talk to the body, slower but more widespread.
Right, using hormones.
And the difference is?
Think of neurotransmitters, like norepinephrine, as quick local messages between nerve cells. Hormones are more like mass broadcasts sent through the bloodstream.
Ah, like a system-wide memo versus a direct phone call.
Exactly. Slower to arrive, maybe, but they can coordinate responses across the whole body simultaneously, crucial for sustained responses like stress.
Now, didn't people used to think the glands making these hormones, pancreas, adrenals, tests, kind of did their own thing without brain control?
They did. The idea was these peripheral glands were autonomous, but history took some weird detours figuring that out.
You mean the testicle extract then?
Oh, yeah. Early 20th century, scientists mistakenly linked aging, lower sex drive, and lower testosterone altogether.
Which led to?
A craze among wealthy older men, checking into fancy Swiss clinics for daily shots of, well, testicular extracts from animals, dogs, roosters, even monkeys.
Wow.
Some even got animal tests transplanted, and they swore it worked wonders.
Placebo effect, presumably.
Absolutely. If you're paying a fortune for painful injections of dog bits, you really want to feel rejuvenated. The science was just wrong. If testosterone was lower in older men, it wasn't the testes failing on their own. Something else wasn't telling them what to do.
And that something else was thought to be the pituitary gland, the master gland.
That was the next step, yeah. This little gland under the brain seemed to control all the others, seemed like the boss.
But not quite the real boss.
Turns out, no. By the 1950s, experiments showed if you took a pituitary out of the body, explanted it, it went haywire. Stopped making some hormones, massively overproduced others.
Meaning it wasn't acting alone.
Exactly. It was clearly getting instructions.
Yeah.
And if you damaged parts of the brain above it, the pituitary's behavior changed too. Proof the brain was pulling the strings.
So who was giving the orders to the pituitary?
That led to a really radical idea back in 1944 from Jeffrey Harris. He proposed the brain itself acted like a gland.
The brain releasing hormones.
Yeah, hormones that travel just a tiny distance down to the pituitary to tell it what to do. People thought he was, well, bonkers.
The brain oozing.
Sort of. But he was right. And proving it led to this epic scientific battle. Enter Roger Galeman and Andrew Shalley.
The rivals. Like Coke versus Pepsi, you said.
Absolutely. They set out on this incredibly difficult quest to find these hypothetical brain hormones, releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones in that tiny circulatory system between the brain and pituitary.
How on earth did they even do that?
With the Slaughterhouse War, as it became known, they needed vast amounts of brain tissue.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Truckloads of pig or sheep brains from slaughterhouses. Specifically, the hypothalamus, the base of the brain where Harris suspected these hormones were made.
Truckloads. What did they do with them?
Blend them up into a brain mash, pour it into huge chemical separation columns, then painstakingly try to purify minuscule amounts of active substances.
Wow.
Then inject tiny droplets into rats to see if the rat's pituitary changed its hormone output. It was a monumental task. Required inventing new chemistry, new bioassays.
Just incredible dedication.
And the rivalry helped.
In a strange way, yes. It forced independent replication. As Sapolsky points out, when your fiercest competitor who hates your guts ends up confirming your finding.
You know it's solid.
Exactly. That's rock-solid evidence.
And they eventually found them.
They did. After 14 years, the first releasing hormone structure was published. Galeman and Shalley shared the Nobel Prize in 1976.
An amazing story. So it proved the hypothalamus is the real master. Absolutely. That part of the brain base contains this whole array of releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones. It tells the pituitary what to do, and the pituitary then signals the glands out in the body. Complex control systems, sometimes one signal, sometimes two working together. The brain is definitely the CEO.
Okay, so we have the hypothalamus as the CEO.
Yeah.
What's its main strategy during stress? We mentioned epinephrine and norepinephrine from the sympathetic system.
Right, the fast responders. But the hormonal system has its own big guns.
Which are?
Glucocorticoids. These are steroid hormones from the adrenal glands. They do similar things to epinephrine, like mobilizing energy, but over a longer time frame. Minutes to hours, not seconds. They're the essential backup.
And how did the hypothalamus trigger those? Is it another cascade?
Yep, a really crucial one. The HPA axis hyperthalamic pituitary adrenal. When the hypothalamus senses stress, it releases CRF.
Corticotropin releasing factor.
Right, that travels that tiny distance to the pituitary. The pituitary then releases ACTH.
The adrenocorticotropic hormone. Quite a mouthful.
It is. ACTH travels through the main bloodstream, finds the adrenal glands way down by the kidneys.
And tells them.
Release glucocorticoids, like cortisol in humans.
So hypothalamus talks to pituitary. Pituitary talks to adrenals. Adrenals release glucocorticoids.
You got it. That axis, plus the sympathetic nervous system's epinephrine and norepinephrine, those are the absolute workhorses of the stress response. They account for a massive chunk of what your body does when stressed.
And you mentioned the body also shuts down non-essential stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While mobilizing energy with glucocorticoids and epinephrine, the body puts the brakes on long-term projects. So the pancreas releases glucagon to help raise blood sugar,
More fuel.
but the pituitary also releases prolactin, which suppresses reproduction, and endorphins and enkephalins to blunt pain.
Natural painkillers.
Yep. And vasopressin helps with the cardiovascular response, but things like reproductive hormones, estrogen, testosterone growth hormones, even insulin, which normally stores energy, those tend to get inhibited.
Makes sense. No time for growth or romance when you're running from a lion.
Precisely. Immediate survival trumps everything else. It's a resource allocation problem solved automatically.
Okay, so we have this powerful template for the stress response. But is it always the exact same reaction every single time for every stressor?
Ah, good question. Hanseli, the pioneer, initially thought so, a single non-specific stress response, but it turns out it's more nuanced.
How so?
Well, there's variation between species. Like, stress lowers growth hormone in rats pretty quickly, but in humans, it can cause a brief increase first.
Interesting. And even within humans.
Even for us, it's not identical every time. Big physical threats usually trigger that core sympathetic and glucocorticoid response, yes. But with more subtle psychological stressors, the pattern, the speed, the relative amount of different hormones can vary a lot.
So it's not just on or off, but maybe how it's on.
Exactly. This leads to the idea of a hormonal signature for different types of stress.
A signature, like a unique chemical fingerprint.
Sort of. Rodent studies showed this. Subordinate animals who were still actively trying to cope, staying vigilant, they had high sympathetic activation, norepinephrine, epinephrine.
Okay, the ready for action signature.
But subordinates who had basically given up, become passive, they showed relatively higher glucocorticoid levels.
A different pattern. Does that apply to us?
There seems to be a parallel. High sympathetic arousal often correlates with anxiety, vigilance in humans,
Right.
while chronically high glucocorticoids, especially cortisol, are found in about half the people diagnosed with major depression. It suggests the psychological context really shapes the biological response.
So how you perceive the stressor matters hugely.
Profoundly. Two people facing the same difficult situation might have very different hormonal signatures based on their coping style, their perception of control, their emotional state.
Wow. So while the basic building blocks of the sympathetic system, the HPA axis are consistent.
They form the fundamental superstructure, as Sapolsky calls it. But the precise way they're activated, the resulting hormonal blend, is tailored to the situation and, importantly, to your interpretation of it.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. What are
Yeah.
the main takeaways?
Well, we see the brain isn't just for thinking. It's this incredible conductor running the whole body.
Right.
It uses the fast-acting autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic gas, and the parasympathetic brake for immediate adjustments.
Fight or flight, rest and digest.
And it uses the slower, wider-reaching hormonal system, masterminded by the hypothalamus controlling the pituitary, which then directs glands like the adrenals to release key stress hormones like glucocorticoids.
The HPA axis.
Exactly. And we learned it's not a one-size-fits-all response. The body creates specific hormonal signatures depending on the stressor and, crucially, how you experience it psychologically.
That link between mind and body is just so powerful.
It really is.
So, to leave our listeners with something to think about, what if we consider that these powerful stress systems evolved for short-term physical emergencies? Saber-toothed tigers, that kind of thing.
Right. Acute threats.
But today, we often trigger them with chronic psychological stress. Work deadlines, traffic jams, maybe exam anxiety, stuff that goes on for weeks or months. What happens when a system designed for a brief, intense sprint gets activated constantly, day after day, while we're just sitting there worrying? What might the long-term cost be?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Something to definitely ponder.
Indeed. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thank you so much for walking us through that complex world of glands, gooseflesh, and hormones.
My pleasure. Fascinating stuff.
And thank you for joining us. From the Deep Dive team, we appreciate you tuning in.